I was left for a wealthier life, but he came back begging for a second chance. Before we begin the story, make sure to subscribe to our channel and never miss more incredible stories every day. The man who traded me for a penthouse is crying on my couch. Liam's shoulders shake, his expensive wool coat still on, rain dripping from the hem onto my cheap IKEA rug. 2 years ago, he walked out of this same apartment saying he was done struggling. Now he's staring at the same crooked gallery wall I hung by myself, like it's a lifeline instead of a joke. "I don't know where else to go, Mia," he whispers. His voice used to make my stomach flip. Now it just makes my jaw clench. "You were always safe? Honest. I need that again." Safe. Honest. The words sound less like compliments and more like synonyms for convenient. I wrap my fingers around my mug so he doesn't see them shake. I worked hard for this piece. Late nights grading, cheap frozen dinners, therapy sessions I could barely afford. I built a life that didn't involve checking his location tag on Instagram. I teach high school art now. I come home tired, paint smudged on my wrists, but my fridge is stocked and my bills are paid on time. Jess and I have wine nights and laugh until my neighbors bang on the wall. For the first time in years, my life is small, but it's mine. Liam wipes his eyes with the back of his hand, the platinum watch still gleaming. "Please, just let me explain," he says. It's not what it looks like online. Of course it isn't. It never is with him. But I see my own reflection in the window behind him. Hair in a messy bun, oversized hoodie, no makeup, standing across from the man who once told me, "You're too good for this tiny life." I take a breath, because I know if I let him talk, everything I've rebuilt could crack. And I haven't even told you yet what made his perfect world finally implode. The night his empire started crumbling, I saw it all on Instagram Live. We didn't always live in two different worlds. When I met Liam, he was still drinking cheap beer at dive bars and pretending to understand my favorite indie bands. We met at an open mic night, him doing a shaky stand-up set, me sketching in the corner while Jess forced me to touch grass. He asked to see my sketchbook afterward. "You draw people like you actually see them," he said, tapping a doodle of Jess mid-eye roll. He laughed at himself that night, made fun of his day job selling software. He called rich guys soulless and said he'd never wear a suit. That version of him lasted maybe a year. The first red flag was small. He started following these entrepreneur pages that worshipped private jets and $20,000 watches. "Losers work for money," one of them said in a reel. "Winners make money work for them." Liam played it on loop like it was scripture. Then came the comments. "You're so talented, babe," he'd say. "But you know art teachers don't make real money, right?" Or, "Don't you ever get tired of being broke?" Followed by a laugh, so I'd think he was joking. The night that still sits in my chest like a stone started with cold Chinese food. I was grading at our tiny kitchen table. He was scrolling through his phone, blue light turning his face alien. "Vanessa offered to introduce me to some investors," he said. "She says if I'm serious about leveling up, I can't stay stuck." "Stuck where?" I asked. He gestured around our apartment. "Here. With this. With you teaching kids how to shade apples." It was the first time he said it out loud. That my life, my work, my dreams weren't enough for the version of himself he wanted to become. And that night, I swear I watched something in him decide I was replaceable. When he finally left, he didn't slam the door. I almost wish he had. At least then the sound would match the way my chest tore in half. He sat me down on the edge of our bed like he was about to perform a performance review. The same bed we picked from Craigslist, the one we built together with an Allen wrench and 3 arguments. "There's someone else," he said, and my ears started ringing. "Vanessa. She gets where I'm trying to go. She's already there." "Already where?" I asked, though I knew the answer. "She owns properties, investments. She's in rooms I can't get into alone." He rubbed his temples like my confusion was giving him a headache. "I can't keep living paycheck to paycheck, Mia. I'm tired of struggling." As opposed to what I do. I heard my voice crack. "You're tired of struggling with me?" He didn't meet my eyes. "You're comfortable being average. And that's fine. But I'm not." In the span of one conversation, I went from partner to dead weight. He moved out in less than a week. Our friends group chat changed overnight. Pictures of rooftop dinners, infinity pools, champagne flutes clinking against city skylines. Liam and Vanessa on a yacht. Liam and Vanessa at some gala. Liam in a tux that probably cost more than my car. I tried to unfollow, I really did. But curiosity is its own addiction, and heartbreak makes you a stalker. Every time I thought I'd blocked him on everything, another tagged photo appeared. Once, Jess grabbed my phone out of my hand and said, "You're not a spectator to his highlight reel, okay? You're a person." But some nights I lay awake wondering if Vanessa laughed at the same jokes, if she liked his stupid stand-up bits, or if Liam had finally become the man he told me I was holding back. "Would you have left me if I'd made more money?" I asked him in a message I never sent. He didn't answer, but his posts did. Because just 2 months later, a video popped up that would become the beginning of his very expensive end. After he left, life got brutally practical. It's funny how fast romance turns into spreadsheets when half the household income disappears. I stared at my bank app the night his last box left the apartment. Rent, utilities, student loans, groceries, it all glowed red in my head like a warning sign. I picked up an extra after-school program, started selling custom portraits on Etsy, and said goodbye to takeout. There were nights I fell asleep on my lesson plans with tear streaks drying on my cheek. I'd stand in front of my class talking about complementary colors while my stomach twisted about whether my card would decline at Aldi. Jess became my emergency contact and emotional triage nurse. She'd show up with dollar store face masks and say, "We're healing on a budget, babe." Like that made it glamorous. Slowly, tiny victories appeared. My credit card balance inching down, my savings account actually existing, my laugh not sounding like it was held together with tape. I learned how to fix my own leaky sink via YouTube instead of waiting for a man with a toolbox and a savior complex. By the time a year passed, Liam was more ghost than person. I'd started to accept that I'd been a stepping stone, nothing more, nothing less. His life, though, that looked like a movie. Every few weeks, someone sent me a link. Liam at some tech conference, Liam sharing a panel with Vanessa about leveraging networks, Liam posting cigar selfies with captions like, "If you're not growing, you're dying." It became a sick background noise, like traffic. I tuned it out. Then one night, after a long parent-teacher conference marathon, I collapsed on my couch with takeout pad thai and opened Instagram without thinking. At the top of my screen, a notification glared back at me. "Liam is live." And the thumbnail wasn't rooftop champagne. It was Liam, in a crumpled shirt, standing outside what looked suspiciously like a courthouse. I know I should have ignored it. But heartbreak and curiosity still share a bed in my brain, so I tapped. The stream was chaos. Comments flying, hearts popping, the connection glitching every few seconds. Liam's hair, usually polished and styled, stuck to his forehead. He wasn't in a tux or a tailored suit. He was in a wrinkled button-down with one sleeve half rolled, like he'd lost the energy halfway through. "Guys, this is temporary," he kept saying, voice tight. "It's all being handled. The media blows everything up." Someone off-screen said something I couldn't hear. Liam spun, eyes flashing. I said, "No recording in there. We're handling it privately." The camera dipped, showing a flash of Vanessa's profile, sharp jawline, dark glasses, lips pressed so tight, they almost disappeared. For the first time, she didn't look like a glossy magazine cover. She looked furious. The stream cut off. My DMs lit up. "Jess, do not look at Insta. It's not good for your healing." A coworker. Did you see what's going on with Liam?" Yikes. Even one of my students sent a meme of a dumpster fire. Over the next few days, rumors started swirling. A mutual friend mentioned some messy investment thing. Another said Vanessa's company was under investigation. Someone else said they'd seen Liam moving boxes out of Vanessa's penthouse at 2 a.m. I told myself it wasn't my business. I repeated it like a meditation. Not my business. But then Jess showed up one night with chips, salsa, and her laptop. "You need to see this," she said. "You're not doom scrolling. You're getting closure." On the screen was a blurry photo from some gossip site. Liam and Vanessa standing apart outside that courthouse, her lawyer between them. Liam's expression caught mid-plead. The caption mentioned frozen accounts and fraud investigation. I closed the laptop, heart pounding, and whispered the question I never thought I'd ask out loud again. What if the way he left me is tied to the way he's falling now? The unexpected message arrived on a Tuesday, which feels rude. Tuesdays should be boring, predictable, full of mediocre coffee and staff meetings that could have been emails. I was at my desk after school, glitter still stuck to my forearms from a disastrous collage project, when my phone buzzed. "Liam, hey, can we talk?" My stomach flipped like it remembered something I'd spent months teaching it to forget. I stared at the screen so long the display dimmed. I could have ignored it. I should have ignored it. Before I decided, another message came. I'm sorry, Mia. Seriously. Everything's complicated. I miss you. I miss how simple things were with you. Simple. Like I was a thrift store he could return to now that Neiman Marcus kicked him out. I screenshotted the messages and sent them to Jess. Her reply came in seconds. Jess, block. Delete. Set your phone on fire. Jess, he doesn't miss you. He misses stability. Jess, also, do not meet him alone. I mean it. I typed, deleted, retyped at least 10 responses. What do you want? Sounded too vulnerable. Lose my number. Sounded too rehearsed. I finally settled on. Why now? He replied with a voice note. Coward. His voice came through my earbuds low and hoarse. I know I'm the last person you want to hear from. Things blew up with Vanessa. I made mistakes. Big ones. I need to talk to someone who isn't trying to sue me or take a statement. Please. Someone who isn't trying to sue him. The words lodged in my brain like a thumbtack. I should have blocked him then, but instead I heard myself whisper, one coffee. Public place. Daylight. Because sometimes closure walks up wearing your ex's cologne and asks for another chance to hurt you. We chose a cafe halfway between my school and downtown. The kind with exposed brick and Edison bulbs that Liam used to mock as trying too hard. I got there early on purpose, needing the extra minutes to remember how to breathe. When he walked in, I almost didn't recognize him. Liam used to move like every room was a stage. Now his shoulders slumped, and his eyes had those deep, bluish bruises tired people get instead of sleep. The designer coat was still there, but it looked like it had been slept in. Mia, he said, like my name hurt his throat. You look good. I was in my usual black jeans, paint-splattered sneakers, a sweater with a hole in the cuff. Nothing had changed about me except the way I held myself. I wasn't leaning toward him anymore. I was leaning back. So, I said, wrapping both hands around my coffee to keep from fidgeting. You wanted to talk. He launched into a story so polished it felt rehearsed. There were miscommunications, bad advice, shady people who'd used him. Vanessa's name came up a lot, usually paired with words like pressure and expectations. She wanted everything bigger, faster, he said. It was always another property, another deal. I just got caught in the middle. Between what and what? I asked. He waved a hand. Lawyers, investors, government stuff. You know how it is. I did not, in fact, know how it was. I know how to stretch a paycheck and calm a teenager having a panic attack before finals. But securities fraud is not in my skill set. There were gaps in his story big enough to drive Vanessa's alleged Maserati through. Dates didn't line up with what I'd seen online. His version of events conveniently removed any active choice he'd made. Did you love her? I asked suddenly. He blinked. Who? Vanessa. He took a long sip of his drink. I loved what she represented, he said finally. Isn't that the same thing? In that moment, with the cafe noise fading around us, I realized I was finally seeing the real Liam without the spotlight. And something about the way he said represented made me suspect he wasn't here because of love at all. After that coffee, I told him I needed time to think. It was the truth, but not for the reasons he assumed. I get it, he said, squeezing my hand a second too long. I'll give you space. Just don't write me off yet, okay? He walked away like a man auditioning for a tragic indie film, shoulders hunched, hands in pockets. I watched him go, then immediately texted Jess. Me. He's not telling the whole story. Jess, duh. Does he ever? Jess, you okay? Me. Physically, yes. Morally, I'm curious. Curiosity can be holy, or it can be the devil in sensible shoes. I started small. I scrolled through his old posts with fresh eyes. Captions about grind culture and seizing opportunities suddenly read like confessionals. The tag locations, luxury hotels, private parties, exclusive clubs, mapped a pattern of someone always standing next to money, never actually holding it. Then I checked public records, because the internet is free and trauma made me resourceful. There it was, Vanessa's company name in a local news article about an ongoing investigation, words like misrepresentation and unauthorized investments sprinkled in like garnish. A mutual friend, Nate, answered my call on the second ring. You heard, huh? He told me. Bare minimum, I said carefully. What's actually happening? Nate sighed. Long story short, they played fast and loose with other people's money. She led, he followed, but his name's on enough documents to be screwed. Documents. Plural. Did he talk about me? I asked before I could stop myself. Nate hesitated. You don't want to? I asked. He said you didn't fit the brand he was building, Nate admitted. Said you were sweet but small-minded. That you'd be happy in a one-bedroom forever. The floor didn't fall out from under me this time. Instead, a cold, sharp clarity took its place. Liam hadn't just left me for a richer life. He'd rewritten me as a cautionary tale to justify it. And suddenly, letting him back in felt less like romance and more like inviting a con man to crash on my couch. The more I dug, the uglier it got. A late-night Google spiral led me to a forum where people whispered about Vanessa's boys, young guys she brought into her deals to be the face while she stayed in the shadows. They got the Instagram clout. She got the legal distance. One post mentioned Liam by name, used phrases like promised guaranteed returns, and pressured us to sign quickly. The date lined up with the time he took that last-minute business trip to Miami instead of coming to my school's art show. I remembered standing in front of my students' paintings, phone buzzing with his apologetic texts. We'll celebrate later, he'd said. This is a big opportunity. Big opportunity, my ass. It had been the first step off a cliff. I pulled out an old sketchbook and flipped through it, finding the page where I'd once drawn him as a tightrope walker, balancing briefcases labeled dreams and rent. Back then, I thought it was romantic. Now it just looked prophetic. Why are you doing this to yourself? Jess asked when I showed her the forum. You already know he sucks. I know he hurt me, I said. I didn't know he might have hurt other people with my name on his lips. Because that was the thing that started to gnaw at me. If he'd used me as an example of what he didn't want, did those investors picture some clueless art teacher when they signed those papers? The next time Liam texted, can we talk more? I really want to fix things, I said yes, but added a condition. At my place, I wrote. I cook. You bring nothing but honesty. 3 dots appeared. Disappeared. Appeared again. Deal, he finally replied. As I set out plates in my little kitchen that night, I realized this wasn't just about whether I'd take him back. It was about whether I'd let him keep rewriting the story of who I was. He arrived with flowers, because of course he did. White lilies, dramatic and slightly funereal, which felt unintentionally appropriate. You didn't have to, I said, taking them anyway because my vase had been empty for a long time. I wanted to show you I'm serious, he replied, looking around my apartment. His gaze lingered on the new bookshelves Jess and I built, the plants thriving in my sunny window, the framed student artwork on my wall. You've done well for yourself. Translation, you didn't stay as small as I predicted. Over pasta and cheap red wine, he laid out his pitch like a salesman who'd been told his job depended on this one last client. I was stupid, he said, reaching for my hand. I let him take it, just to see what the lie felt like. I thought money would fix everything. I thought if I got far enough from where we started, I'd stop feeling like a fraud. Did it work? I asked. He laughed bitterly. I'm in debt to people who don't use contracts, Mia. Vanessa cut me loose to save herself. The government's sniffing around. I'm back on my brother's couch. Does that sound like it worked? There it was, the Real ask, wrapped in self-pity. What do you want from me? I said quietly. His eyes softened. I want us back. You and me, like before. We could get a place together again. Start over, somewhere cheap, while I rebuild. I know I burned bridges, but you're pretty sure I'll still be standing on the shore, I finished. He flinched. You're twisting my words. Jess's voice echoed in my head. He doesn't miss you. He misses stability. I can help, he continued, leaning forward. You're so good with kids, with people. We could start something together. An art school, maybe. Put my business experience and your talent together. We'd be unstoppable. A year ago, that fantasy would have lit me up inside. Now it felt like a trap lined with my own dreams. So you want to tie my work to your mess? I said. You want my name on things again. He opened his mouth, then closed it, caught. For the first time since he walked back into my life, I saw the panic behind his charm. And I realized this wasn't just a second-chance pitch. It was a survival strategy. That night, after he left, I sat on my couch with my sketchbook and wrote one word across the page in thick black marker: boundaries. The next time we met, I brought that notebook with me. We need rules, I said, sliding into the booth at our old diner spot. Grease stains on the menu, cracked red vinyl seats, the same waitress pouring coffee like no time had passed. If we're even going to keep talking. Liam looked wary but nodded. Okay, hit me. 1. I said, ticking it off in the air. No shared money. No joint accounts. No signing anything together. Ever. His jaw tightened. Mia, that's non-negotiable, I said. 2. If you want any kind of relationship with me, romantic or otherwise, you go to therapy. Real therapy, not some bro podcast about mindset. He rolled his eyes. Come on, that stuff helps. Does it? I asked. Because all it seems to have done is teach you how to justify being selfish. Silence. He looked away. 3. I continued. You take full responsibility, publicly, for what you did. To me, to those investors, to anyone you misled. No more Vanessa pressured me. No more I was just following her lead. His fingers drummed an anxious rhythm on the table. You're asking a lot. I'm asking for basic decency. He stared at me for a long moment, then laughed without humor. You know, the old you would have just hugged me and said, we'll figure it out. The old me didn't know what you were capable of, I said. For a second, I saw something ugly flash across his face, annoyance, maybe even contempt, before he smoothed it over with a practiced smile. Fine, he said. Therapy, boundaries, whatever. If that's what it takes. The words were right. The tone wasn't. It sounded less like a confession and more like a negotiation. And as we left the diner, I couldn't shake the feeling that I'd just shown him exactly which hoops he needed to pretend to jump through. The showdown wasn't planned, but in hindsight, it feels inevitable, like gravity finally collecting on a long-standing debt. It happened at a birthday party for Nate, of all places. He'd invited both of us, probably hoping for some sitcom-style reconciliation. Jess called it a bad idea with good snacks. I went because I was tired of hiding from rooms Liam might be in. The bar was one of those trendy rooftop places I used to see on Liam's stories. Fairy lights, overpriced cocktails, people posing more than talking. I arrived with Jess, armor on in the form of red lipstick and a dress that made me stand straighter. Liam was already there, holding court at a high top, telling some story to a group that looked politely bored. When he saw me, his face lit up like I was still his audience. Hey, he said, slipping an arm around my waist in front of everyone. I stepped out of his grasp, not subtle about it. Jess's eyebrows climbed to her hairline. Can we talk? I said. My voice sounded calm, which surprised us both. We found a quieter corner near the stairwell. The city glowed behind him, all office lights and traffic and lives that weren't ours. I've been doing what you asked, he said quickly. I went to a therapist. I even reached out to some of the investors to apologize. I'm trying, Mia. Are you? I asked. Because I read that statement your lawyer put out. He froze. You what? You framed yourself as a naive victim, I continued. Said you were manipulated by a more experienced partner. You made sure Vanessa's name was implied, not yours. You still haven't admitted you made choices. His nostrils flared. My lawyer told me to say that. It's strategy. So your integrity is up for negotiation, but your brand isn't? I said. Got it. He took a step closer, lowering his voice. You don't understand how high the stakes are. I could go to jail, Mia. And the people you convinced to trust you? I asked. What do they lose? He didn't answer. I felt something inside me unclench, like a knot finally slipping free. You didn't come back because you love me, I said. You came back because I'm the only person who ever looked at you and saw something other than a walking dollar sign. He opened his mouth, but I cut him off. And you thought you could still cash that in. This time, when I walked away, I didn't look back to see if he followed me. News travels fast in circles built on gossip and Wi-Fi. Within a week, screenshots started circulating of Liam's DMs to investors, promising guaranteed returns that never existed. Someone leaked a recording of him parroting one of Vanessa's pitches, his voice slick and confident as he nudged a hesitant client over the edge. He knew exactly what he was doing, the caption read. He just liked the perks too much to stop. Liam texted me frantic messages, each one a different flavor of panic. They're exaggerating. You know I'm not that guy. Please, Mia, just tell people I'm not a monster. I need someone in my corner. I need you. I stared at the screen until my eyes blurred, then turned my phone off and went to bed at 8 p.m., like a grandmother with boundaries. At school, my world stayed blessedly small. Students still worried about grades and prom dates, not securities fraud. Mark, the new history teacher, brought me coffee and asked, "You okay?" You've been quieter than usual. I used to think love meant standing by someone no matter what, I said, surprising myself. Now I think it might mean not letting them drag you down with them. He nodded slowly. Sounds like you're learning how to love yourself, too. Liam showed up at my apartment once more, pounding on the door until my neighbor shouted for him to shut up. I watched through the peephole as he paced the hallway, hair wild, voice slurred. I know you're in there, he called. Don't pretend you're better than me, Mia. You're not. It didn't feel like power this time. It felt sad. I texted him one final message. Do not come to my home again. I'm done being your safety net. Then I blocked his number on everything. The guilt still came in waves. Memories of the boy with bad stand-up jokes. The man who once held me when my grandmother died. But underneath the grief was something steadier, thicker, like the primer you paint on a wall before rebuilding. Because for the first time since he left, the future I pictured for myself didn't include him anywhere in the frame. Time didn't magically heal everything, but it did something almost better. It made the sharp edges dull enough to live around. Months passed. Liam became less a person and more a cautionary tale occasionally mentioned in hushed tones over happy hour. Last I heard, he'd taken a job 2 towns over, something far below the lifestyle he used to blast online. No more rooftop photos. No more motivational captions. I saw him once from across the street downtown. He was waiting for a bus, collar turned up against the wind, scrolling on a cracked phone. For a moment, the urge to wave rose up like a reflex. Instead, I adjusted my bag, turned the corner, and walked toward the coffee shop where Jess and Mark were waiting for me. Mark and I had grown close in the quiet, unremarkable ways that feel more like real life than fireworks, sharing grading tips, trading favorite podcasts, splitting fries at staff gatherings. When he finally asked me out, it wasn't on a rooftop. It was in the copy room, toner-stained and nervous. I don't want to be a rebound, he'd said. I steady. I want to be a new chapter, if you're ready. So we took it slowly. We talked about boundaries on the first date. We laughed at our own trauma like people who knew it wasn't funny, but needed it to be sometimes. My apartment evolved, too. I replaced the couch Liam used to sprawl on with a thrifted one Jess, and I reupholstered in mustard yellow. I hung more art, not to impress anyone, but because looking at it made me happy. The plants in my window grew so wild I had to start giving cuttings to colleagues. I still had bad days, moments when a certain cologne smelled like the past, or when a luxury car advertisement slid onto my screen and whispered, "You could have had all this." But then I'd walk into my classroom, see a kid's face light up because they finally nailed perspective drawing, and remember that I already had something Liam might never find. A life that fit me, not his idea of success. If you've made it this far, you might be wondering, did he ever apologize for real? The honest answer is no, not in the way that matters. He said the words. He wept. He begged. But an apology without changed behavior is just emotional confetti, pretty in the moment, useless once it falls. I used to think closure would come from hearing him admit, "I chose money over you, and I was wrong." It didn't. Closure came the night I realized I didn't care what he admitted, because my worth wasn't waiting for his verdict. These days, my life is small by his old standards and huge by mine. I wake up to sunlight instead of anxiety. I pack lunches, grade sketchbooks, and occasionally fall asleep on Mark's shoulder during movie nights. Jess still drags me out for karaoke, even though I sound like a dying kettle. Sometimes, when a student vents about being ditched for someone cooler, I see my 27-year-old self in their eyes. I tell them, people who treat you like a backup plan will always need a safety net. Don't let them sew it from your self-respect. If Liam ever stumbles across this story, I hope he understands it's not revenge, it's a record. A reminder that the people you step on while climbing might be the only ones who remember you as human when you fall. I don't know exactly what's next for me. Maybe a move, maybe a grad program, maybe more quiet evenings painting at my kitchen table. But I know this much. If someone shows up at my door begging for a second chance after throwing me away for a shinier life, I'll remember everything you just heard. Because the real plot twist isn't that he came back begging. It's that I finally learned how to say no and mean it.